This is the Seahawkers podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Schultz, and I am joined today by my good buddy, Adam Emmert. Adam, it's here. It is the week leading up to the first preseason game. We got a preseason practice at Lumen Field out of the way. It gives the team an opportunity to, see what it's like to go to the stadium, especially if they haven't done it before. That's out of the way. That happened on Saturday, and now here we are going into a week against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff, and I know we are all on pins and needles kind of waiting for that first preseason game just to see these guys out in pads again, getting it done, because as you mentioned, they did the practice at Lumen Field in air quotes, and it wasn't a mock game like we've done in the past, which is totally fine, but yeah, it wasn't quite the same live game action, but you got to see guys out there, and it sounded like things went well enough. I don't know. I didn't hear like a lot come out of that where I was to get excited or not excited about anything, or just was kind of like, yeah, we did practice, came out pretty even, 38-21. We'll let you figure out what that means or whatever the score was, and we'll go from there.
It was some weird score too, because Coach Mike was asked about it in the post game. And he says he has special scoring based on situational
it's very nerdy
football. Yes. And he acknowledged that. So
yeah, that's what
we have a very nerdy coach. I guess the bad news that came out of it is that AJ Finley, the safety, suffered a pretty serious injury. I know for some people it was a scare. If you went and you watched the post-game press conference and you see like the timestamps and you see where it says Coach Mike talks about Barner's injury.
Oh, no.
Apparently, whoever made the description thought when they said AJ, they were referring to AJ Barner. No, not AJ Barner. It's AJ Finley. And it's a distinction, but no less, a serious injury that is impactful to the team.
It is. It's that's a super big bummer for Finley. Like, you're always hoping for these guys to get their full shot with all the health that they can muster, right, to actually make an impression on the team and kind of further their career. So, hope AJ's healing up and all that. But whoever's doing the timestamps on the videos, get your AJ straight, because you gave half the fan base a heart attack, and that's not cool. But I think one of the things that's going to get our hearts racing instead, Brandon, than having a heart attack is this preseason game coming up against the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm really fired up for this, not only just because we get to see our dudes, but we get to see Pete and the Raiders back out there as well. That's going to be fun. And I know you had maybe a theory or a question as to what this preseason game could mean.
I guess it's more of a question, because you and I, we've talked about how the Seahawks are kind of flying under the radar nationally. And so I'm wondering if there's something that either you could envision, or maybe listeners of the show, if there's something that they could envision happening in week one of the preseason that would change that. Now, another thing that we heard from Mike is, unfortunately, there's no starters that are going to play. We can talk about how we might define the term starters. We'll find out on Thursday how Coach Mike defines the term starters. But the reason why I think there's an opportunity in this preseason game, week one, it's that idea that Seattle is flying under the radar a little bit, especially defensively. And this is a unique opportunity for Coach Mike to go up against the guy he took over the team from. And with it being Pete Carroll, a defensive-minded head coach, is there a statement? Is there a statement that can be made by the Seahawks team going up against Pete Carroll and the Raiders on Thursday?
A statement? That's tough. What would that statement look like, I guess, in terms of, hey, this is Mike's team now, and he's the young defensive mastermind going up against Pete, and he trumps him that day? Is that kind of what you're thinking of, or what? I guess I'm trying to kind of flush out exactly what a statement looks like in terms of a preseason game.
Well, let's think back a little bit to maybe statement wins that we've seen in the preseason, even if you can consider it a statement type win, because I think you have to look back on it historically a little bit. And what comes to mind for me is the preseason during that Super Bowl season. They came out of the gate. They won on the road over the Chargers 31-10. Then they come home and they win 40-10 over the Denver Broncos, the team that they ultimately beat in the Super Bowl. And at the time, it's like, oh, well, this is fun because it's a preseason game and you're dominating another team. I would think that, say, Jim Harbaugh, if he were a coach for that Chargers team in that 2013 preseason, that would have kind of felt like a statement type win because you still had that rivalry of Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh that came from the college coaching days. And so I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for here. If there's like a dominant blowout type victory, like if Coach Mike's defense comes out, and yes, they're not going to go up against Geno Smith. I'm guessing since he's announcing that the starters for the Seahawks aren't playing, Pete's not going to start any of the starters for the Raiders. But if the defensive depth comes out and shuts out the Raiders team, would that be enough that you could say that's a statement over like the fact that Pete Carroll's on the other opposite sideline?
Yeah, when I think about that, and you make the example of like if Harbaugh had been on the Chargers and, you know, there was a little bit rival there between Pete and Jim. I think about this, and is there really any sort of rivalry between Coach Mike and Pete? I've only heard, you know, whether it's Pete talking about Mike or Mike talking about Pete, I've only heard mutual respect and, you know, platitudes, right? Just things that, you know, sounded nice about the other guy.
Well, he was asked about it right during the press conference after the game. Have you thought about how the team should approach this game with the potential for the crowd to cheer on Geno Smith and Pete Carroll on the opposite sideline? And he said he hadn't thought about it. And then went right into the idea, well, of course they should cheer because those guys were here and were amazing for this franchise.
Yeah, great men for the Seahawks and guys that I'm sure that everybody's going to applaud when they walk out on the field, and they've earned it, no doubt about it. And I think it's genuine that Coach Mike hadn't thought about it at all coming up to this point, and only because I think now entering year 2, that's almost having a whole year, his whole first year behind him. And then Pete before that, like that's like 2 lifetimes ago in coaching time. So I don't even know if that even registers for him. So I don't think that there's any statement that could be made or really to be made between Coach Mike and Pete. But I do think there could be a statement in this game that's made. And that's if this offense comes out and they run the ball early, they run the ball often, they run the ball effectively, and the offense looks physical to pair up with whatever the defense does, then I think that could be a big statement for this team, because that really kind of shows, hey, we're trying to complete this circle of toughness. We're going to have this running game. This is what we're doing. This is non-negotiable. And I think that would be a massive statement, to be honest.
It's probably something that I'm even expecting, because if they were to come out and throw the football around after what we've heard throughout this preseason, throughout the offseason, if it doesn't trend toward, you know, kind of that 50-50 split, I would be surprised.
I could see a scenario in which it was pass heavy. Let's say they've been in camp working up to this point in everything, and in preseason week 1, by that time they're looking at their run game, they're like, we're feeling pretty confident in the way that's going, but what we're having a problem with is with our passing game. We need to work on that more. And not just with Sam, like obviously he's probably not going to play, but we want to see Drew out there more. Who's winning this number 2 spot at the end of the day? Is it going to be Drew? Because we all assume it's going to be Drew, but nobody said, like Mike did early on in this process for this year in the offseason, that Sam Darnold's the undisputed starter. Nobody said that about Drew Lock in the number 2 position. So they may come out and throw the ball a whole bunch just to see Drew get it done and see Milroe get it done, and maybe see a little bit more of Torrey Horton. Like, is he going to beat out MVS? And so that would be a scenario in which maybe they throw the football a lot more than what we're expecting this offense to look like when come the regular season. So if it doesn't look exactly what we're hoping for in these preseason games, don't freak out. Like, there's not a lot of game plans, different combinations of people trying to see who fits where on the team.
Don't freak out. It sounds like you're making a memo to yourself. Like, don't freak out. Much like I think there are some freakouts that happen even from practice. Like you don't see certain guys out there in practice, and you start to think, oh, well, maybe they're injured, or maybe they're way lower on the depth chart than we thought they were. And it turns out that maybe they do have an injury, and maybe they are just protecting the player from injury. A lot like, defensively, we talked about Jonathan Hankins not being out there. That's a guy probably doesn't need to be out there. And you wonder how many of those guys like that are on this team, because you look at the depth chart of the team. You brought up Torrey Horton, MVS. I know MVS is probably, if you were to pencil in a starting lineup, most people would probably put MVS as the third receiver in that lineup. But when Coach Mike says our starters not playing, or he says that starters aren't playing, does that mean that there's not a competition to go ahead and check with a veteran player like Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Or is there, you look at other places on the roster, is Shaq Griffin going to be out there? Because he's for sure number 2 on the depth chart behind either Reek or Spoon. And do they really need to see a vet like him out there playing, though?
Maybe. I think that you'll probably see somebody like Shaq Griffin out there, and I would imagine you'd see a few reps for MVS too. But if you didn't see MVS, it's not necessarily an indictment on anything. Just remember that he's been around the league a long time. There's a lot of tape out there. Most of the coaches and GMs in this league, they know what he is as a player. And then on top of all of that, he spent an entire season with Kubiak down in New Orleans. So there may be a world in which Kubiak's like, yeah, I know exactly what I got here. Let's see this rook go out there and see if he can make that play a day that Mike Macdonald referenced in terms of a former statement from Steve Smith Sr., which anytime I hear Steve Smith Sr. say like, hey, this is something about receiving that tells you something or is important, I listen, because that dude was a baller.
Yeah, and if you didn't hear the clip, it was Coach Mike referencing Steve Smith, who, was just a workhorse of a wide receiver coming up and not expected to be anything really but a special teamer, and probably played his way to a borderline Hall of Fame career. Like if Steve Smith got into the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't be shocked. And what he said was that if you're a rookie, you have to go out there and make probably a play a day to get coaches to notice. And from all accounts, Horton's been doing that. Like we've heard his name frequently.
Maybe some of the most exciting news that we've heard out of camp so far as hyping up a player. And if Steve Smith did not make the Hall of Fame, I'd be shocked. That dude belongs in the Hall of Fame. He's one of my favorite receivers of all time. So that would be a slap in the face, I think, if he didn't make the Hall of Fame. But so
receivers just take a while to get there. And so, it's one of those things. Like Tim Brown took forever to make it into the Hall of Fame. Or did he even make the Hall of Fame?
I don't think he has. And I view him more as a compiler than a game changer.
Yeah.
Where Steve Smith was more of a game changer than a compiler, although he did have a long career. But anyway. With that said, Brandon, you're kind of circling back to the statement idea. I think that more than team statements, I think individual statements, because that's what we're looking for, is individual play in the preseason. I think statements could be made there. But you had asked a question about, is there a statement to be made between Mike and Pete? Like, and it was something that was brewing in the back of your brain. Like, do you think that there's something to be said there?
The only thing that I can really think, again, is if it's that kind of defensive performance to where people take notice and say, here's the young defensive mind, head coach, going up against his former head coach. Again, this is more of a media narrative than anything.
I think so.
And if people go, wait a second, the depth on this defense is so insane that they went out and they shut down, like say for the Raiders, I don't know, is Ashton Genty going to get snaps? I mean, he's a rookie. It kind of leads me to one of my next topics, just to go there next. It would be guys that you want to see out there that you think need to be out there because they're young players. or maybe they're just new to the team and they might need that time. Ashton Jeanty kind of falls into that category for the Raiders because brand new player, like they want to see what they have in their rookie running back going up against live talent. If they were to go out and Ashton Jeanty runs the ball 8 times and gets like 6 yards, that feels like a statement that the defense can make. And again, I think just that narrative of the new school defensive coach shutting out the old school defensive coach who was on this team and coaching this team just 2 years ago. Something like that happened. That's if that happens, I think that's something that could carry within the media.
Oh, I could definitely see headlines written about things like that. But one of the things you have to remember about preseason is that this is some vanilla stuff. It's not like Mike's going out there and scheming it up and showing what he does and all of that. And Pete's not going to be doing
unless
that
he does.
No, he won't. He absolutely won't. You're just working on fundamentals. You're trying to work on base defense, all that stuff. Maybe, some nickel stuff. But no, you're going to maybe see a few blitzes and things like that. But there's not going to be a cohesive game plan and something that they're really trying to do in the preseason for either coach. So I would think that if the defense, let's say the Hawks defense came out, did exactly what you said, shut them down, Raiders second and third string struggles, and they give up a bunch of points. I think that would point more towards where these two teams are at in terms of building out the roster. Because I think everybody agrees the Raiders have further to go, especially defensively. I mean, they've got Max Crosby. That's awesome. And then, the roster isn't full of a bunch of stars. Whereas if you're looking at Seattle's roster, I think that from the 1s to the 3s, it's more talent laden at this point, and that would probably shine through. And that would be the reason that they had a better day. Well, that would be my guess.
I think you're right, but it is that question that just something that was brewing around in my brain this weekend. And you're right too. Defensively, this goes to the idea of how you approach the preseason, even as a team, because you mentioned Max Crosby for the Raiders. I look down the Raiders depth chart and I see like 5 or 6 guys who are penciled in to be starters for the Raiders who weren't on the team last year. And in that type of situation, as a fan, I kind of want to see my starting players out there. Shoot, I kind of want to see Sam Darnold out there as a Seahawks fan early because I want to see how he's going to operate this offense and get more of a feeling of that rather than just 1 or 2 drives that we might ultimately see during the preseason. With the LA Rams, I completely understand it. When Matt Stafford, the way he is, if he's not going to be out there all preseason, and as a Rams fan, that's the way I want it because I want him protected for the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. You're not dealing with some of the injury stuff with Sam that you are with Stafford there. But, I mean, if I don't see any Sam Darnold in week 1 of the preseason, I'm just fine with that. We get to week 2 of the preseason. I mean, shoot, it'd be sweet to see a quarter, maybe even a half of it, and just watch them go through it. So that way they can get in a rhythm, actually string some drives together, that sort of thing. And then not see them again preseason week 3. I'd be great with that.
Yeah.
That would be just enough for me to see like, hey, okay, some things went well, some things didn't, but like this could be solid. And then week 3, let Milrose see if he can win that number 2 spot and kind of go from there.
So we brought up Marquez Valdez-Scantling as one of those starters that may not see some action, or maybe.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who you're expecting to be a starter who you for sure want to see out there?
Oh, when you start it with expecting to see as a starter, that kind of blows up the guys I want to see. I just all the right guard guys, just get them out there. Let's see it. Who's going to come out and try to take this job by the reins? You heard that Christian Haynes is dealing with a pec thing. We'll see if he plays. It seems like he's been kind of behind Bradford on the depth chart here anyway. So maybe the answer to that question is just simply Bradford.
Bradford. What if Grey Zabel doesn't get any snaps in preseason week 1, is that going to concern you, or is that going to build you with a little confidence?
I'd say confidence, because at that point they're saying, not only are you our starter, but I feel really good about where you're at and how it's going to look going forward. And we don't need to risk your injury today. You stay on the bench, Gray. Have yourself a day.
Man, that is one guy that I want to see have more action through the preseason than anybody else.
That's the thing, is that, do I think that's likely? I don't think that's likely that he doesn't have a lot of snaps. I think that you'll see him out there. I think Mike was saying, like, you won't see starters. I think he's talking about
starting
like,
vets.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than,
really, the only starting rookie that you can pencil in is Robbie Oots, maybe Zable.
Yeah.
Defensively, I don't think there is a guy who, because Imanware would be probably the next most likely, and he's behind Julian Love and Kobe Bryant.
I think you're going to see a ton of Imanware in this game.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's one of the guys I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, big time. I can't wait to see him out there. You hear that camp has gone very well for him. Macdonald's been fairly effusive about him, which isn't quite his style. And so that tells you a little something. And then to hear Nick at the podium talk about all the different places that they've put him, and they're asking him, hey, is that a big load? Or how's that working? Are you having a hard time getting through all that? Or has it been, he's like, oh yeah, no, I got it. They just asked me to do stuff and then I do it. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, let's see it. I can't wait.
The reason why I like it is because, especially with a player like Imanware, who is really, really fast.
Yeah.
That's the type of player who in practice can show up really well, getting to where he needs to be quickly. But then the playmaking side of it, there's that opportunity in practice, but it's more of the live action. That's something that I want to see live. And how does he hit? What kind of plays is he making? I'm excited. He's probably my number one guy to watch against the Raiders.
He's number
if
two.
If Zable's not out there.
Yeah, he's number 2 for me, only behind Milroe, just because I'm fascinated as to what it's starting to look like and all of that. I'm just really fired up for that. And I think we'll see a fair amount of Milroe as well. But as far as Imanware out there, and you make a great point about the idea of, yeah, in practice, it looks good because you can get to the ball and it's practice. You can't really hit. You can't do all that stuff. So some of the playmaking is maybe dial back a little bit just because of the nature of practice compared to live bullets. And I honestly believe that defense needs that live action a lot more than offense. I think you can go through a lot more and get better at offense, not playing in full pads and full contact than you can defensively. I think you need it.
That and offensive line, defensive line, it'll be kind of the first real time that you're playing at as close to game speed as you would during the regular season.
100%. And it's going to be a freaking ball, man. I can't wait. I cannot wait for Thursday night. I am so fired up. It's finally here, and I can't wait to see a lot of these rookies, man. You brought up a few of them. Oots, you have to throw in there as well. Torrey Horton, like all of them, man. I can't wait to see these dudes in their unis running around doing cool shit.
Catfish.
There's also on the other side of the ball. I know Geno Smith's not going to be out there, but one of the cool things that we did this offseason was go down to Shrine Bowl. There's guys on the other side of the ball that I'm kind of curious about too. Cam Miller, who we interviewed down at Shrine, drafted by the Raiders in the 6th round, along with Tommy Malot, who was drafted in the 6th round by the Raiders. And for those who don't know, this is kind of a fun storyline for FCS division nerds that, we watch Montana Grizzlies, which is Adams alumni. Their division rival is the Montana State Bobcats, and they went all the way to the
said catfish wrong.
Okay. Clear rival. Tommy Malott was the quarterback of that team, and they faced off in the FCS championship against the North Dakota State team that Cam Miller quarterback. So the Raiders went out and they got the 2 quarterbacks of the 2 rivals that played in the championship, and now they're going to be asking Cam Miller to be throwing to this quarterback converted to wide receiver.
Right.
it's an interesting story for me.
It is an interesting story. Really enjoyed our conversation with Cam Miller. Nice kid, no doubt about it. Malot, because he does, even if he comes from the wrong team in Montana, rooting for him to have success because he was here, and we try to support all those dudes when we can. And
people don't know which direction to go for their school. He had a 50-50 shot of which way to go, and chose poorly.
Look, we all have flaws, and that was one of Tommy's, and now he's with the Raiders. And I mean, shoot, that feels like a personality flaw to a degree too, but yeah, he'll work through it. That's all I'm saying.
You can't choose where you're drafted, but
that's true.
We're going to see them.
Unless you're Eli Manning.
unless you come from, I don't know, Hall of Fame lineage, I suppose.
Yeah. Third generation NFL legends.
So we talked a little bit about what we want to see from our Seahawks. We talked a little bit about some of the storylines on the Raiders too. Any other storylines that we're missing for our Seahawks? Special teams nerds. Are you going to be dialed in on special teams for preseason week 1? Look,
man, we're all about the long snappers here on this show, and it sounds like Stoll's having some back issues,
back tightness.
Yeah, and that's brutal. Nobody likes that. So Brady Russell out there getting it done. And I think the interesting thing about the idea of Brady Russell being the backup long snapper is one of the things Mike said was, oh yeah, no, he goes out there, he practices on his own about doing it. So it's like they didn't even be like, all right, go over and practice with the special teamers for a minute or anything like that. They're just like, hey, you're probably gonna be the backup long snapper. So when you get home at night, if you could put up a net in the living room and just practice a little bit, that'd be cool.
Brady Russell is a guy who sounds determined to make this team. Like former tight end in the offseason, they ask him to play fullback. Yep, that's what I'm doing. And then, oh, hey, our starting long snapper is back's tightening up a little bit. You know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to go out there and start snapping, because if I'm not making this as a fullback, I'm making it as a dang backup long snapper.
Yeah, and I don't know too many teams that carry 2 long snappers. So...
No.
Yeah. But having that versatility is a big thing, right? Being a Swiss Army knife kind of guy and being able to go out there, do tight end reps, do fullback reps, do long snapper reps. Shoot, he could probably work in the equipment room. I think he also could probably be a position coach. So very versatile guy. Well, or a hairdresser with that hair. Like he's got amazing hair.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do have a few days until the game. So Adam, either you start getting your hairdresser skills up to par so you can head out to Seattle and be Brady Russell's hairdresser, or you go out and you start practicing your long snaps. Just waiting for that Coach Mike call up.
That's right. To be honest, I've been keeping myself pretty sharp. Last time that I went out and practiced, I charted myself in practice, and I was 2 for 40 in terms of connecting with the target. And it's a work in progress, but we're getting there.
2 for 40. There's definitely room for improvement. And you know what? There's room for improvement for us throughout the week, as we've got a couple of shows coming up. We're going to be, I know we're planning to have Dan Viennes on this week, and we're going to have lots of Seahawks football to talk about leading up to this game. If you want to get all the alerts of when it's happening, getintheflock.com. You can help support the show there. Get into our Discord, where we're going to be talking throughout the week. That's a fun place to hang out, especially as we get into this preseason and regular season, Adam.
Yeah, for sure. I ended up switching iPads, which is what I do the Discord on. And it doesn't remember my password, and I don't remember the password. So I might have to make a new account or something. So that's why I haven't been around. It's something that frustrates me, and I just didn't want to deal with it. But it's I'm going to have it done by Thursday. There's no doubt.
Discord training tips is what Adam's going to need. So maybe don't practice the long snapping. Maybe just practice logging into your account, and that's probably going to be, for our community, the best situation.
So you know how I was 2 for 40 for the long snapping? I think I probably need even more practice when it comes to computer skills / logging in. So it's gonna be fun.
Well, you've got a few days, buddy.
Just
get to it.
I'll get it figured out.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.